Welcome to the Regenerative Brands podcast. This is a place for consumers, operators, and investors to learn about the consumer brands supporting regenerative agriculture and how they're changing the world. This is your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host, AC, who's going to take us into the episode.
On this episode, we have Jay Albany, who is the CEO of Wide Open Agriculture. Wide Open Agriculture is Australia's leading regenerative food and agriculture company and operates three distinct enterprises. Under the name Dirty Clean Foods, they operate a direct-to-consumer e-commerce platform that sells 300 different regenerative and artisan products directly to wholesale and individual consumers. They've also launched a line of branded oat-milk-based CPG products under the Dirty Clean Foods name as well. And currently, WOA is focusing its future growth on its third enterprise, producing and supplying Buntine Protein created by processing Australian sweet lupin. Sweet lupin serves as a rotational crop in regenerative systems of the Western Australian wheat belt, but currently does not have a large profitable market as a human food ingredient. Wide Open Ag's business is a beautiful blend of targeting both local and global impact while operating under their 4 returns mandate, which includes financial, natural, social, and inspirational returns. Jay was a joy to have on as a great storyteller, and we certainly covered a lot of ground in this one, folks. Let's dive in. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Regen Brands podcast. Very excited today to have my friend Jay from Wide Open Agriculture with us. So welcome, Jay.
Thanks, Anthony. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, man, it's good. I think this is the first podcast interview 12 hours apart. So, greetings from Thursday and you're in Friday,
Yes. Well, it's Friday is going really well so far. You should be excited to see what happens.
I'm excited. I'm excited for it to come around over here. For those of you not picking up on it yet, Jay is in Australia and WOA is a publicly traded regenerative food business in Australia that really, in my mind, consists of 3 kind of distinct enterprises. But Jay, for those that are unfamiliar, can you give the listeners just a little bit of background on those 3 things?
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. So the company Wide Open Agriculture, we're focused in Western Australia. 3 units, primarily 3 initiatives. The first is a regen food brand called Dirty Clean Food. Done a great job building that brand. It's direct to consumer and in retail. The second is a sort of really ambitious and exciting B2B initiative that uses lupins, Australian sweet lupins, which I'm sure I'll get a chance to tell you about later. And the third is we really want to make a homegrown, grown, processed pulp made here in WA oat milk. So we have an oat milk brand that's like a consumer packaged good, and it's been quite an interesting story of how we've done there. But it's still going. So we got 3.
Yeah, and we're live with a man who's from Alabama and now an Australian, and he's gonna tell us all about it. So we love that.
That's right. I got lost playing Oregon Trail with my life.
Well, super helpful framing, and excited to dive into all 3 of those things. Can you share, Jay, a little bit around the origin story and also kind of your story and how you got involved with the business as well?
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. I'm going to start with my story is so long and twisted that I'll answer you quickly with the origin story of the company, which is really why I'm here. I didn't found Wide Open Agriculture. 2 gentlemen, Ben Cole and Dr. Ben Cole, and Anthony Maslin founded this. And it was really early. I think it's in 2017. Actually, no, a little bit before that, but let's just say 2017 when everything started moving with a vision to regenerate the wheat belt, which is an area in Western Australia that, it's probably not dissimilar to a lot of areas everyone can relate to in terms of it has had a lot. It was a very high very diverse, lush place at some point, and 100 years of really intense farming practices and sort of clearing has impacted that land. And there was a community of lots of people there who sort of slowly over the last 40 or 50 years, everyone knows someone who had to sell their farm or got sort of, acquired into the big corporate farming thing and moved away, or the towns sort of lost they're amazing towns. I'm not saying they're not amazing towns. I'm just saying like there's been a long-term change, and they found this business to like, hey, how can we apply regenerative farming to improve the soil, sort of create a little bit of value from and commercialize and create fair value from farming in a different way. If anyone has seen like a picture of sort of red dirt Australia. Like it's not quite like that, but it's like that with like a bunch of there's huge industrial farming zones where there's a lot of grains and wheat growing, and then the dirt though you can literally see the topsoil, not there
from
like
this. From this conversation and others, it seems like it's just very similar to like the Corn Belt in the U.S., right? So it's like two guys. It's the Australian equivalent of a couple guys saying, "Hey, we want to regenify, the Corn Belt." But in this context, it's the Western Australian wheat belt.
Yeah, thank you for saying it so much so much tighter than me. That is exactly what I meant, because I think what appealed to me was when I drove down to this place called Williams I did remember that it was 2015 and 2017 was their IPO or something like that. I think that. So,
okay.
But I drove down to Williams, which is right in the middle of the wheat belt. It's 2.5 hours or 2 hours drive from Perth into the middle of. It's not the outback. I don't want to give that impression, but it's in the middle of like red dirt, scrubby vegetation along the highway, and you're kind of like, wow. And it's so hot. At least it was on the day before Christmas when I drove down there to meet Ben. And he did I talked to him about his business, and it really did remind me of. I mean, I grew up in Alabama as he mentioned it. I'm not going to pretend I grew up on a farm doing all the farming things, but I definitely was around a lot of people with this kind of story. I know someone who had a family farm but had to sell it, or it used to be done this way but now it's not, and I just feel like it just really struck a chord in me, like and something I could relate to. So it did really, hearing their story, and he lives in Williams, Ben does, and sort of hearing that story of, hey, we're going to try to build this business, and it's not just about profit, it's about and it's actually for returns. But I'm just it's regenerating the wheat belt. We're going to use regenerative farming to create a business that hopefully improves the value of crops and improves, family farmers' lives, and gives them like a way to trust that they can make the investments to go to regen, and someone's going to buy it and pay a fair price for all that work. So that's kind of like what we tried to do. And when I met them, they just finished a really big innovative project that didn't end up being commercial, which is a shame. But I was this like crazy long-haired American, and my background was I had just finished working for a long time on a online grocery business in New York, and like the last thing I had done, like literally before I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pursue this Australian dream I've always had, was take the Prospect Park farmers market in Brooklyn and put it online for a half-hour delivery in Manhattan, because obviously but I really it was like my personal weekend farmers market, and I walked around and I was like, hey, can I buy a bunch of your stuff, because you guys I'm sure don't like driving here every Saturday, and I'll make it available for a half-hour delivery during the week. Like we probably won't mess with your sales because we don't deliver to Brooklyn. And it was like my favorite thing I ever did because of the personal relationships, not because of I just these are people I have been shopping with for my entire children's lives, and anyways, I was like, oh great, well I've thought a lot about how to commercialize this. Like let's go. I'll build it in Perth, and so it was really like a great sort of meeting story. I didn't know as much about the science of regen farming, but I knew some, and I really immediately connected with the story and the situation from things that I put from my own personal experience, and also um, loving being in Australia and the excitement of it. And I really love building businesses from scratch. So I was like, let's go. You have the network. This can be sold. I promise.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they just happened to be in a spot where they were like evaluating the whole business, and they stumble upon a guy who had built an American online grocery platform, and they needed to create, some sort of market access vehicle with proper economics to, financially reward regenerative stewardship. And this all happens. And so I guess take us through some of the journey since then, building the e-commerce platform.
Yeah. First of all, I'm sure they ran some background checks on me, but I am who I say I am.
Yeah.
Because it must have seemed weird, but yeah. So, so getting going, it was really bare bones. The company is publicly listed, but it's a little bit different here in Australia versus the United States. There is a more natural. Yeah, I guess it's like it is okay and not looked down upon or not felt shady to like do your initial funding on the Australian Stock Exchange, as opposed to I think the United States, like you do sort of family money, like high net worth funding to get you going, or you venture capital or whatever you're going to do, and then you don't go to the NASDAQ unless you've already made it big time and you're going to cash out. I think it's just a little bit different. I think it's because of all these mining operations where it's like sort of you think you found something. People, anyways, it's just different.
You can go public earlier down under. Grand takeaway.
That's right. I don't know. I love how you said that. There's got to be a T-shirt or something. You got to work on that. Anyways, so that aside, but even though we're the point I was trying to make is even though we're a public company, like it's small. Like there's like 5 people, and they were basically not a lot of money, and they were basically incubating a couple ideas. A consumer packaged good product that someone else is working on, trying to grow hemp in the wheat belt, and me. So I think that like day one, you're like, so what are you gonna do? You gotta write this paper, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna go drive to all the people, like every grocery store and restaurant I can think of, with our first farmer that you've given me, who is a cattle farmer, Warren Pansini, Blackwood Valley beef, amazing, so good, really well connected and very intelligent and thoughtful regenerative farmer. I'm gonna drive around to 30 people over a week, meet them, and see if they'll see how much they want to pay for this. Before I write you a paper, because I want to actually like talk to the people I'm going to need and make sure that that's a good idea. And, so I think like basically that sounds really simple, but it can be really scary to ask people who are not your friends and family about an idea, and be ready to get told it's stupid. And so I did some incredibly dumb things in that first 2 weeks before. And I talked to him and I was like, hey, why do you think people are going to buy your meat and your beef, and why is it good? And like, and I talked to the Wide Open folks and said, well, if you had to describe regenerative agriculture in like 10 seconds and in a way that's something obviously we all know, if you're listening to your podcast, that is extremely difficult to do.
Yeah.
So I kind of came in and to the first couple of restaurants, and I was like, oh, hey, we've got the, like, your food's really good, but hey, it'd be even better if you had some environmental spin on regen. And it was just like nothing. I just made it for this podcast. I just made a movement with my
stale
hand,
face.
Yes, it was nothing. No love at all.
No reaction.
And I was like, okay, well, that's not a good selling pitch. And then I went back to Warren, and I was like, hey, no one's buy that. And he's like, try. Try that it tastes really good. I was like, okay, good idea. So the next one is like the flavor. You can taste the difference of how this guy makes it, and then sort of how you figure out how to pitch your idea with actual conversations. And even though it's pre-sales, like, I couldn't have sold them anything. Like, those are going to be your highest conversion people later when you're actually ready to do it, because they have helped you. That you've asked them for advice, told them what you're doing, they have given you help, and just the fact that they've given you some advice or told you your idea is no good, like, it kind of commits them emotionally to help you out later when you're actually going. I know it's weird, but it's like, it gives you a base of people to go hit up. So anyways, I literally started it, me and him in a truck. I had his truck. One car driving around Perth with different kinds of potential customers, walking in, trying to get their attention. And then we went back and we sort of came up with a game plan to balance the way we were going to sell a cow to make money based on what the feedback was. The digital thing, I obviously knew how to do, but I was worried that digital thing being the website.
Right.
I was worried that it would take too long with our resources to scale it up. So I really, especially for something really big like a cow, I wanted to make sure we had, like, the other two channels enough demand to balance the animal to make it work.
So basically, starting with food service to create the base level demand, and then to build the D2C e-commerce platform on top of it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we had the website, and it was like set up for, because I only had cows, it was set up for meat boxes. But it was the kind of thing where you had to, like, make your phone chime when you got an order. So I didn't miss it. And I always like saying this to people in the Perth who are not, or in cities. Probably for your customer base, it won't be that surprising. But cows are really big, and most people in, like, a normal suburban or urban life only think about what they eat. So they're like steaks and a burger every once in a while or whatever.
Right.
It's like 70% not that. And you have to find, it's like burgers is lifeblood or whatever sort of other way you can process the mince is like how you survive. So it was really critical once I talked to Warren and figured out how he made money as a cattle farmer, selling directly, that we got a hamburger restaurant. And I will just give props. There's one guy in Perth who is responsible for Dirty Clean Food existing at all. His name is Simon Coney, and he is the chef of Short Order Burger, which makes great American-style burgers in Perth. I can vouch for that. You can hear me. And he was like, yeah, I'll take a shot on you. And it was he just promised straight up, yes, I will do it because your beef tastes good. And I like, not me, he liked Warren. And I like you, Warren. And once I had sort of, okay, great, I had these two pretty popular hamburger, he had two restaurants. I had these two pretty popular hamburger restaurants as a starting point. Like, I can then actually start this business. So Simon Coney, thank you forever. That's it.
Shout out Simon. Okay. And then today, to give an audience a feel for like the scale, how many farmers are there? How many products, sales, if you can share that, and kind of how did you bridge that gap? Like what was the growth?
Yeah. So sales, it grew really fast. So that story about me and Warren in the truck is in kind of mid 2019. We
That COVID
launched,
bump.
yeah,
Yeah.
we did. We were in total denial. Sorry, I need to answer your question first. And then I'll talk about COVID. Just remember to ask me that later. So we do about $12 million annualized in sales. So
Nice.
it was a very, like, I think it grew at like 100% CAGR or something. I'm rounding up probably, but 90, whatever, high 90s for the first 3 years. And then this year has been sort of more of a digesting, trying to stay positive on the growth kind of a year. The overall brand has, I think it's 15 regen farmers in our network. We do own one regen farm, but in general, we're a business that's about creating and securing a commercial offtake to help people like confidently invest in switching to regen, or just telling people who are already regen, get a fair price for what they're doing. So about 15, the overall sort of land, Australia's big, like,
right.
A few Texases, I forgot how many. So, this is a lot. Sorry, it's 30,000 hectares of land under influence from Dirty Clean Food in our network. So it's a fair amount of land. And just stating that there's a lot of land here. So my ambition is that it's some 100,000 multiple, not 30,000, but I'm still proud of 30,000. And we sell, we have like a couple of core products that we can scale. Like I mentioned cattle to start with, but beef, lamb, pork, chicken, eggs, sort of staples in in livestock that you'll work through a regen property, where we have pretty good supply and enough product to take into grocery stores as well. And then we have the website works with about 50 what I call friends of Dirty Clean Food. So they're either smaller regen farmers who we just don't have enough supply to take it into the wholesale channels, or they're what I like to call sort of values aligned small ethical food businesses who I just want to help because they try really hard. Their values align to us, meaning they're trying really hard to use the ethical ingredients, and they're trying to make an authentic, real product, not a highly processed product. And they're trying to make good food, and I want to be a part of helping Perth have that food culture. And so that could range from like a really special kind of salt with herbs mixed in, to all kinds of stuff you might see at a farmer's market or something. So we have about 50 of those and about 300 total SKUs on the digital platform across everything. So it's really built to be a digital farmers market that you can bring to you tomorrow. In grocery, it's more like 50 or 60 SKUs total. That sounds like a lot. It's mainly because there's so many options on meat. If you next time you go shopping in Australia, they still have butchers. It's like hasn't quite been totally changed over, and so there's just a lot of options, and people want that variety. So it's probably the fact that we have beef, lamb, and pork means that we have a lot of SKUs there, but there's probably a dozen other SKUs.
Yeah, it seems like you've built that deal kind of off the livestock products. So I'm also kind of curious, where did the oat milk come in, and how did that start happening?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I definitely have. I think I've definitely covered the livestock. um, but so basically, the wheat belt is this area. I'm sure you can tell from its name that there's a lot of grains grown there. So there's Australia is a big exporter of wheat, oats, barley. Well, we drink a lot of beer, so I don't know if it gets exported, but we and lupin. So our first sort of idea was we. I often hear like Australia has the best oats in the world, and it all is coming from this region. So I think the idea basically came from, hey, it's really cool. We built this regen platform, it's, in Perth, and it's going great, and it's sort of covering a lot of Australia's southwest because of it's easier to get high quality meat year round. There's more rain. I'm sure everyone wants to know that the Southwest gets a little bit more rain than the middle. But so how can we make sure we're in this wheat belt area? So we really oat milk. At the time we did this, Oatly obviously was a thing, and everyone heard of it. But it wasn't like it is now, where there's like a dozen oat milks everywhere.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, well, we have the best oats in the world. So obviously we'll have the best oat milk in the world, which is a little naive. But so we got these oats and they're regen oats. And we're like, well, we could sort of leapfrog what's going on here. And I think there was a whole bunch of news about like Oatly had some kind of big corporate nasty investor or something. So the people who were like super left on the
sustainability
thing were like, they've sold out or whatever happened. I don't want to get into that. But so we were like, oh, there's an opportunity here to have the world's first regen oat milk, make a big deal of it, and really we got as many oats as we could possibly imagine. So we could really make some impact, and so we came up with this plan. We went and we didn't have any idea how to make oat milk, so we spent some time. Not myself, actually. Ben did this. We spent some time interviewing or whatever, reaching out to people who make oat milk. This was in Europe, and found a really great family business that had been making plant-based milks for like 25 years in Italy.
Wow.
And we're like, okay, hey, can we do this? Because we have great oats. We have milling. We can prepare them any way you want. Australia is totally set up to send you oats however you want in containers. We have a brand that's in 100 grocery stores and will be growing fast. And by the time, anyways, so we did it. We launched it up. We figured out how to do the carbon neutral stuff. I don't even want to get into carbon neutral, but we followed the rules that one would do to get the stamp on carbon neutral packaging in Australia. And so whatever, we thought we had the world's first carbon neutral oat milk plus the world's first regen oat milk. But then like a week before, it takes a really long time to ship oats to Italy by sea,
right?
And then have it come back. And like a couple weeks before we launched, Minor Figures had announced the world's first carbon neutral oat milk. So we were a little bit bummed about that, but we just changed the wording. First regen and carbon neutral. And
were they selling that in Australia?
They weren't selling it in Australia, but
I was about to say they're American brand, aren't they? That's like the guy in the bird costume. Is that their logo?
Yes, they're very big. Yeah, that's it. They have those strange I don't know if they still is, but they had the strange drawings of like a woman and a goose, or I don't know.
Yeah,
I actually really like their marketing. It at first I thought it was silly, but it's grown on me over the years of watching them kick my butt.
Yeah.
So we launched this, and I think it was a really good product. But sorry, I think it was a really good product. Period. It's still available, and we make money on it. So great. But our sort of global ambitions for this, were a little overstated and overexcited for what we could actually follow through on. And I'm trying to remember the dates. Sorry, Anthony. I think it's been a product for like 18 or maybe 2 years. And
it just
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, did it get to the point
Bail
where
me out from stumbling on whatever I'm saying?
Well, no, I mean, it sounds like maybe just the business case didn't, after it was in market for a little while, it became clear that the business case wasn't going to meet the 4 returns model, right? From a profitability and maybe a farmer impact and a scalability perspective. It sounds like that maybe was the case.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So what I thought was that I have just disrupted the meat industry in this state. You got there's no one like shadier than people who trade meat in terms of like competition and cheating and underhanded stuff. Like this will be a piece of cake because people like oat milk is so friendly and like I could not have been more wrong. Like by the time, because we're a listed company, we sort of had to say, well, I would redo this now, but we said, hey, we're going to do this. Like it's going to be a big deal. Like we're going to start in WA, Western Australia, and then we're going to take it global and blah, blah, blah. By the time that boat arrived, like there was a couple more brands who had moved a lot faster than shipping oats over back and forth the year by sea, and like it was like they were totally ready for us. And the sort of thing any normal person would do would be to like walk around to the cafes and say, hey, explain why your oat milk is local and better and give it a shot and all this stuff. I mean, it was like an iron lock on every place to get coffee in town with this other company that I'm not going to bag on your show, and because I don't like to bag other companies, but they were like so ready for us and so much bigger and had so much more marketing and were so ready to squash us by giving away pallets of product and like it was an iron lock on cafes. Only people who would take the product were people who purchased it was a good product. It worked. It made a little, cool cappuccino and all the stuff.
Yeah.
It was not a product issue. It was we were just outmaneuvered. Only people we could get in the cafe business were people who purchased our meat and liked me personally, and I could talk them into it over beer. Like it was like, that tough.
When you needed the premier coffee shops, and it sounds like that wasn't happening.
So it was like we had to sort of rethink that, and we ended up being able to build a pretty fast growing business. Like we got into Woolworths, which is the biggest grocery store over here, and we got we got it into all of our grocery stores, but we probably lost 6 to 9 months of just sort of like figuring out what to do. And we had done all the same pre-sales like I told you, but by the time we were ready to go, like it was just, we got totally beaten, which is frustrating. So that ended up being, I don't think we've disclosed how much it is, but so I don't want to say it's a public company, but it's say less than 15% of our revenue is more than 5%.
Yeah.
And we had ambitions for it to be half. So it was a pretty tough pill to swallow, but and then along the way lots of things happened, but we haven't given up on it because we wanted to finish the job here and make it. And part of so many competitors have emerged and so many big companies with way more money than us marketing that actually the secret sauce for making oat milk is no longer secret sauce. So there's just I don't have to go to Italy to make it. Like now I have options locally, so we can be a lot more competitive finishing on that story. So, and we got a grant. We were really lucky to get a grant from WA state government to sort of help us finance part of that. So we should be making local products in a few months, and we basically, after that whole story I told you, we decided to just give up on cafes for a little while and focus on grocery and just build a predictable sell through, and focus on Australia and Asia, Southeast Asia, where they are used to buying Australian exported goods, and just wait till we had our own. So we had the full value proposition we wanted. And so I am going to have round 2 coming. I don't mind saying this publicly. You guys get ready. I'm going to have round 2 coming in a few months, so get ready.
Well, I feel I want to kind of recap what you just said. I think there's some good takeaways there. And it also is a good segue into really the lupin and the B2B, the Buntine Protein play, right? Because you have this mixed bag of results from the 2 different CPG/D2C. And now you're trying to build this B2B thing as well. But what I heard there was like speed to market and manufacturing, right? As key critical factors. Distribution and kind of different games based on channel, and then also like marketing war chest specifically around just market timing, right? So I feel like those are all good takeaways that we've definitely talked about with so many brands, and there's been positives and negatives and indifference along the way underneath all of those, but all super critical factors there. But I think especially the oat milk work really lended itself to what y'all are doing on the lupin side with the Buntine Protein, if I remember correctly. So talk us through kind of how that came to be and what the focus is there.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. You're right. So I retrenched because we have what we think is a killer product that uses lupin protein with our oat milk, and obviously, no one likes the fact that there are food miles with shipping containers. So like it sort of finishes our overall environmental value proposition. I don't like being carbon neutral because of offsets. I like being carbon neutral because we're actually doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So we have all of this lined up, and the key, I think, but I was still going to probably abandon this product until the lupin, until we tested the lupin protein in the oat milk.
Hey, Jay, let's pause and just tell people what is sweet lupin, like how is it grown, and the fact that like it's like in the grain rotation in Australia, because people, especially over here, probably wouldn't even have that background. So I should have flagged that first.
Very good point. Probably no one knows what lupin is. So
and it's not the same as lupini beans. They are related, but it's not the same because we do have some lupini beans that you can buy in stores here in the U.S.
That's right. So lupin is a lupin is part of a grain rotation. It's a flour legume, like a flowering legume that is worked through a grain rotation over here, and also in Europe and also in Canada. But most of the world's lupins grow in Australia. Like I think probably a little over 50% of the world's output, and it can range between 50 and 70 depending on the year, come out of Australia. Like 90% of Australia's lupins come out of this region where we're trying to regenerate, called Western Australia.
Wow.
And sort of the next biggest area is Canada, which is sort of high teens of global production, and Germany, which is single digits. So I'm not going to go past that. But the what's really cool about lupins is they're amazing for a regenerative system. In a relatively dry soil, and they do fine in wet soils too, but in a relatively dry soil system. So they're one of the few things that create biological nitrogen and put it in the ground. So they fix nitrogen in soils. So when we did a study, like we have a lupin farmer, and he was going to tell you, if I got him on your show, which maybe I will sometime if you want. if we got him on your show, he would say, I use lupin, and in the areas after I've used lupin, I don't have to use any fertilizer, like with a really high percentage, like, you know, of any kind, organic, whatever, just nothing of, you know, he'll tell you like 90% or something. But in a like conventional system, people who are not trying to be regenerative, we did a study with one of the big grain companies here, and we basically found that you can reduce the nitrogen fertilizer need on that land by, you know, between 30 and 50%, depending on you know, the farm and whatever, which is a huge number. And a huge part of the country. And these are people who are just like, their business is, you know, improve yields, improve cash flow per, you know, so it's like, this is a pretty big thing. The problem with lupins
is it a cash crop or a cover crop, or where, like, what's the market for it?
No, so it's used as a, sorry, I should say, no, the price is terrible. So I don't gross it. So everyone who was excited to plant lupins and make a lot of money, no, not yet.
Well, you're working on it. That's the point. So yeah,
but we're working on trying to fix that. So our whole thing is like, how do we help commercialize lupins? We are trying to elevate it, like sort of the way that canola has been elevated in a price. You said
canola?
I said canola,
okay.
because I think I don't know if that's true in the United States, but in Australia, that's like been a really great. The increase in canola prices has been really great for a lot of farmers in the region in terms of having something else to rotate in their system that actually they can make money on. Because they just keep hammering it with the same things. And rotating lupin, they really only do it's used for sheep feed primarily, and it is great for sheep feed because it's really high in protein naturally, and it has all kinds of other attributes that are good for studding. But it's great for a lot of healthy and protein related things. But it's not really sold for human food, other than, you know, a pretty small amount. Like if you go shopping, you'll definitely see, you look hard, but you'll definitely see lupin and, you know, in the ingredient list on some things. But it's kind of like a flour that gets mixed in sometimes. But what we've done is, because this is so we grow so much, the universities have been doing work and lots of on how to make lupin you know, more valuable globally, because it's a strategic resource in Western Australia. And we bought the technology that came out of this university called Curtin a couple years ago that basically unfolds the protein structure. So if this is a podcast, so I've taken a fist, sort of like, here's a church, here's a steeple, and like shot my fingers up in the air. So there's more receptors in the protein.
You have to watch on YouTube to get these killer visuals. So that's a plug for our YouTube channel.
A hard protein structure unfolds. There's more receptors, and it increases the solubility and dilation of this protein once you've isolated it. And then also, by incredible luck, I don't know if Curtin would agree with this, but in my view, this was a very fortunate, lucky byproduct of the process. The taste, which is normally pretty bitter, thus no one eats it, is like, once you've gone through this process, like it just like pulls back the taste a lot. So it's like easier to blend, easier to mix in, because of the solubility and gelation, and it tastes like nothing, which is like the goal of any ingredient. So we are super thrilled with this. And we've spent the majority of our resources over the last 18 months trying to bring this from lab scale, and theoretical at the university to like commercial scale. And we just finished it, which is, I'm super excited. Like we built a pilot plant and R&D center last year, which was a really big bet for us to make that kind of CapEx, and sort of built an ecosystem of, you know, pre-sales. And then we were able to purchase a factory it's actually in Germany, so I gotta get away from
I
the
saw that.
containers to Europe thing. But bought a factory out of administration that was like purpose built for lupin, which is the most random thing. But this was the other lupin company.
So, okay, I want to recap
Let's
again
stop.
because
There's so much.
No, it's good though, and there's commonalities and kind of analogies I want to make for the audience because I feel like, especially for the American context, it would be helpful. We've had some episodes on the show where we talk about buckwheat and how it's a really good rotational crop in the grain rotations. And so there's kind of a similar play to that. I'm also hearing like a similar play to soy of like, hey, this used to be in grain rotations. It's mainly been in livestock feed. How do we make it more, edible or usable in human products? And we see the plant-based boom, and that's happening a lot with soy. And people will argue about whether that's good or bad and kind of how it's being done in certain ways. But it's also making me think a little bit of Kernza over here. So, similar kind of regenerative attributes, but it needs commercial support to basically become market accessible and make the economics make sense. Whereas, over here, the Land Institute hasn't been an actual enterprise. They're trying to do that, but they're really a scientific organization. So it's really cool to hear kind of this public-private and institutional partnership where it's like, hey, this university did food science and R&D that figured out how we could turn this into something edible. And now it's our job to go, turn that into stuff that people eat. I think you mentioned you're already blending with oat milk. Is this like plant-based meat? Are we talking plant-based milks? Or are we just talking it's a protein additive to whatever? Like what is the application spectrum?
Well, Anthony, I'm going to tell you, it is the best plant-based protein. It should be 100% of sort of the next generation of plant-based foods after the ones that don't taste good or are delisted from every grocery store.
Yeah. I like it.
Also, it does it's really especially good in a dairy analog category. So we also think it can make a really good noodle, but we're focused on dairy analog at the moment because so that's like milks, yogurts, cheeses, spreads, mayonnaise, that kind of stuff.
Because of consistency or nutritional value, or what property lends itself to that?
I think it's because everyone likes it's kind of similar to me selling the meat a few years ago, which is hilarious. But like everyone likes the fact that it's, there's most of the customer's a big, a global or whatever, someone who's making consumer packaged goods. They don't have to be global, but I'm trying to get some of the global ones to do it. They want to be more sustainable and they want to have evidence. So, they all like that, but it's kind of a nice to have. Like the main reason they, how they operate their business is like, it's still pretty normal in terms of like profit. So they're using soy or pea as the ingredient for most of these things, and most of these products that you see on stores. And I agree, there's a bunch of new things, including us, which is very clearly the best. But what we compete on is the performance of those like attributes of emulsification, solubility, and gelation. Like if you're trying to make a product and it's like a sausage, you can kind of get away. Like I'm sure there's an art to vegan sausage making that anyone, if you're listening, I'm sure this.
This is not a vegan sausage making podcast, so you're good. We don't need that depth.
But the people I've been selling my product to, like, they're like, nah, I don't pay more for vegan protein for that because I can mask any of the problems with like a meaty flavor of soy and pea with other stuff I know how to do in sausage making, and it won't change the overall taste of the product. Whereas in milk and yogurt and cheese, it's just there's a complex texture and sort of way it should feel in your mouth, whether it's like trying to be a copycat or just sort of a new variant in this category like that. There's a lot of stuff they have to add in to get the effect, and I think there is honestly I don't know what the right word is, but a rethinking of the category from the producers, that the food producers, that they have to make this stuff taste better, and not just like to get past the to reach the like average person, the big middle end of the adopter curve. And so what we pitch our product on is these performance attributes of solubility, gelation, emulsification for this application, because we know that it actually performs better in that than when we've made all kinds of stuff with it. But we know that it performs better in that, like you can taste that versus stuff made of other proteins, and you can see that it's going to have a better effect in terms of taste and texture without having to add other things on the ingredient list. And then I obviously say go to your grocery store and look at some of the stuff. I don't know if this is true in America. I haven't been back in a while. But
no, it's very true.
Last time I checked, it was you flip them over and it's like it's got the stuff you think, and then it's got a couple of numbers. It's got maybe some flavors that are it just has a sense of this is like supposed to be all natural, but it's really highly processed, and there's a bunch of unreal things in here. And I think the big companies know that. They're not, so they're looking for ways to solve that problem. So I'm pitching the lupin protein as, hey, this is good for your sustainability. It works really well in these applications, and it will help you achieve a better taste with less other junk added in, so you can actually market effectively without it being weird. And then now that we have the factory, we can get closer to competitive price. It's obviously something we say this is a premium product because it achieves all this performance, but I'm aware that if I want to really compete with soy on a grand scale, I'm gonna have to get the price down. The good news is that raw lupins are cheaper than soy in a commodity.
Wow.
So I actually have a chance.
Yeah.
But obviously a long way to go. But that's how we're coming to market, and we're really, I think we're really good. It's a good chance to give it a go because there's a little bit of unlike when I went into oat milk when it was like right before everyone else did, or basically at the same time everyone else did. This is there's a moment of sort of pausing. It's the eye of the storm in the sector. And there is a chance to break in because there's a lot of people sort of rethinking what they're doing right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it really resonates, I feel like, with what's going on with the plant-based category over here. I mean, it's a really rough year for plant-based over here in the States. And that's because flavor, function, over-processing, too long of ingredient lists, all the things that you just mentioned that this should have advantages on are becoming problematic for the consumer. And so a lot of these brands and products have been propped up by a lot of investment money, and, the writing's kind of now on the wall, and not all of them. There are definitely some people doing it the right way. And, I think it's a really interesting conversation to have about the regen piece too, which is we spend so much time talking about how do we do like more regen beef, which to me is a lot simpler than this, right? It's cows, you rotationally graze them, you grass-fed, grass finish them, and that's awesome. But like we still are going to have processed multi-ingredient products. And so we also need to find a way to, clean those up and build regenerative systems around those, especially ones that economically incentivize the farmers. Like as much as I would love all those grain farmers to start grazing cattle, like the reality is they're not going to tomorrow, right? So how do we get them to continue to move up the regenerative spectrum? And it seems like if this works from a commercial perspective, it has the potential to really do that in a meaningful way.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I totally agree. If Stuart's listening, who's my prime lupin partner, I'll need to just tell you, he does rotationally great. He does run beef and cattle and sheep on his farm.
Nice.
But we need to get that everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's really, I know we've been talking for a while, so I'll try to say this quickly. But I really hope that overall as an industry of people or as a group of people who care about where our food comes from, how we can be healthier and be more respectful to the planet, that we kind of bridge this divide between animals are bad, like period, versus
plants are good.
Plants are good, and I think both categories have real challenges and problems, just like any other thing. I mean, when people tell me that, I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like you don't want more beef, like that's okay. But also the reason I sleep well at night is because I know that every time I sell more cows, that's fewer cows going into grain lots, and like people are getting healthier, better tasting meat that is actually doing something good for the planet, and I'm willing to, I feel good about that. And with the lupins, I feel like a lot of these products are highly engineered and highly processed, but I think I know for a fact that the folks who are developing new products at many of these companies are, don't like that also and are trying to fix it. They just don't move at the pace we do. And I'm hoping I have a product that helps them do that and also helps turn red soil into black healthy loam.
Yeah, it's like it goes into the whole ethos of regenerative to me, which is continuous improvement. And so how do we just create tools that can provide that? And it seems like this should be absolutely one of those. I'm curious if you can share. I saw the acquisition of the manufacturing facility in Europe. You just talked about it a minute ago. Is that also strategically because you feel like the strongest initial market from a B2B perspective might be there, or what are y'all thinking about from a commercialization perspective? You talked about it a little bit, but
yeah, Anthony, that's a good question. So for me, that was really. I've been trying all year. Well, it's now 2024. In the beginning of the year, last year.
Is this just Jay's secret ploy to live in Europe, right? He's done the US, he's done Australia, does he just want to live in Europe? I'm on to you, Jay.
You're on to me. If that were true, it would have been on a Greek island. I'm pretty happy
Mediterranean.
No, listen. This was really we announced the beginning of last year, and I sort of said, okay, look, we don't have enough money. The market has changed, as you referenced. Like it's a lot harder for plant-based themes to get growth money. Yeah. Like we're gonna have to just make do with what we have.
Yeah.
And figure out how to produce larger amounts because we have to be able to produce more product in order to actually win these big accounts. Or we'll just be stuck with,
just from like an economies of scale ingredient price point perspective.
Yeah, or we'll just be stuck in the niche zone and we won't be able to get in it. We won't work. So we said this publicly because we're a public company, and I said, look, I'm going to look for partnerships, and I'm going to look where they have big assets, and I'm going to look for other opportunities to get a factory on the cheap. I'm sure I didn't say it that way, but cost. I think capital light ways to.
We all understand business 101. You're good.
So we did both. We made a partnership with a really big dairy company over here. So that in any plant-based, just as a background, in any sort of plant-based protein model, there's a big expenditure for like a place where you can have enough power and water to, extract the protein and dry it. And drying it is expensive. And so like all greenfield sort of approaches to this, and I'm sure people have read about them. I don't want to call anyone out, but there's been several pretty public, like so-and-so partners of so-and-so, and they're going to build a $400 million blah, 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 plant to produce some kind of pea protein or whatever. And we can't do that. And those have actually turned out to be pretty capital destroying. So, what we did was like, okay, well, what do we do well? We have this one step that we bought from the university. Extraction is what everyone else does. So like we don't need to be like, we want to know how to do it with lupins, but we don't need to be perfect in extraction. So we found folks who know how to do everything, and drying is like pretty standard in a lot of industries. I'm sure it's very nuanced, but like there are a bunch of big expensive dryers in dairy everywhere. so we focused on how do we get that, and then just plop in our boxes and our know-how. So we got a big dairy company over here with a lot of extra drying capacity to help us ramp up to really big production volumes. Saputo Dairy Australia, and that'll come online in kind of 18 months ish, assuming we go on schedule, and it'll enable us to do kind of at least 5 times what the German factory can do. So
Wow.
we could win it, but only if we, I don't know, has sort of optionality in the sense that like we have to build a pipeline to deserve that, but there's still a bunch of work to do. But it gives us the ability to chase whales and to build a pipeline without worrying that we can't make it. And then in Germany, it was great because this was kind of the only other company making a lupin protein commercially we were aware of, or at least we saw in competitive bidding.
Yeah.
They actually did that sad story. They spent almost 80 million Australian dollars, so 50 million euros ish.
Yeah.
Investing in lupin with a huge sweet factory. They didn't spend all 50 on the factory, but sort of overall, they had kind of 50 million US dollars worth of sort of big investment trying to build a lupin business, and and they went into bankruptcy. So we were the natural bidder since no one else really, very few people were aware of it, and like any other buyer who didn't care about lupins was going to have to redo the whole factory anyways. So so it was really fortuitous. So that is why we're in Europe. Also, it made. I mean, it's still a big risk for us. I think we had to spend $4 million on it, Australian, so $2.5 million or US. But so that's for us. That's a lot of money, and even though it was obviously such a good deal, but it just made sense. I mean, the customer prospects in Europe. I mean, the market in Europe is obviously a much bigger economy than Australia,
right?
But most of the major food brands, U.S. would be the only other place I could think of that would be better. But it's almost at the U.S. They're so advanced as a consumer base in terms of plant-based food adoption. It was perfect for us. So I think that is why we did it. I have been to Europe a few times on the way and since, and I will tell you, Anthony, the first few times I was absolutely like a kid in a candy store. We had a sales meeting in London, and I'm just like looking around at all the, oh my God, that's a thing. That's that's what I learned about in school and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But then in Germany, the first time I went, I was like, this looks like Hansel and Gretel in my imagination. The houses had these like really steep, I don't know what you even call them, like roofs. And just like you'd imagine. And so, yes, absolutely, I had a lot of fun in the beginning, first several trips. Obviously I'm working really hard as well, but I was a happy tourist but I do like Australia the best.
Can't blame you there.
Not going anywhere anytime soon.
That's cool, man. That makes good sense. My assumption to this question is that it's a short one, and it's like, hey, we're really head down focused on everything we've been talking about for the last 15 minutes. But is there anything else in the future vision that we haven't talked about that's worth sharing that is on the roadmap for the next 3, 5, 10 years?
Yeah, no, I think we probably took on. The answer is head down focus on what we've been talking about.
Yeah. The answer is sell some Buntine Protein.
We took on maybe a few too many things with Greater Clean Food, oat milk, and Buntine, but we're still in the game, Anthony, and we're head down focused. We have the the factories, the sales team, the everything to just execute. So let's grow this thing. Sales execution.
Sell some product, baby. That's what it's all about. I love it. Makes me think of my produce days. That's my favorite thing to do is sell stuff.
Indeed.
Cool. Well, I'll take us home with our final question then, Jay, which is what we ask everyone, which will be interesting to get your your vantage point, because we're usually asking a CPG brand operator in the US this question, but someone that's operated, a D2C e-commerce platform now, a CPG oat milk brand, and now this B2B play. How do we get regen brands to have 50% market share by 2050?
Oh man. What was the date?
2050. So you got some time. You got just over 25 years.
Yeah, I think that this might sound a little idealistic, but I think that kind of in any major shift, it's the consumer who dictates it, and the companies follow because they want to make money. So I think that Perth is a pretty small place. It's extremely isolated, most isolated city in the world. I know because of the last 3 years that you can get people to pay a fair price for regenerative produce, and they want to. And it's a pretty analogous city to an American city in the terms of demographics, economics. It's a pretty good. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's in Australia, but it's a pretty good throw a tomato against a wall and see what happens. I don't know if that's actually expression, but it's a pretty good test.
I think it's spaghetti against the wall, but you're close.
Spaghetti,
enough.
Yeah. See what happens. Try it in Perth. No one will know. There are literally advertising companies who will try campaigns on Perth, measure it, but they're like, oh, it's a fine. No one will know outside of Perth. So it worked. It really did. We did. It's not like we had a lot of marketing money. It was a true people want to do this. Man, it's not like it was. It's not what I thought it would be, which is that just the sort of upper class people with spending money did it. We sell across every suburb in town. So I really think that it's going to be one of these things where we all have to do what we're doing, and we have to support each other and not sort of tear each other down. And I think that as long as we keep doing this and working together, at some point it'll be like what happened for us over here, which is not 50%. I don't have 50% market share, but there was a noticeable change from people who were sort of in all of our social networks, friend circle, whatever, friends of friends, to city adoption and true disruption. So I think we have to I think we just go straight to the consumer and not worry too much about the infrastructure that exists, because the only way the existing infrastructure is going to change is if they can make money doing it, or they feel a threat of losing money from it. So I think we just go straight to the consumer, everyone, and we be really thoughtful about tearing each other down. I don't need to be better than someone who's doing something similar. Let's work together. The enemy is clear. Yeah, and they're way bigger than us.
I love that, man. And I think we can't say that enough in the regenerative space, because a lot of times we get into the holier than thou and the fight for regenerative supremacy. And we need people that are making the claims in the market to be above a certain baseline and to really be validated that what they're doing is legit and it is regenerative. 100% agree. But it's still so small that if we don't really work together for the common good, it's not going to work and it's not going to scale. And I feel like what y'all have built is such a cool model, because you're attacking that localized, regionalized piece, right, with the direct-to-consumer model, where you're really creating better markets for those farmers right in your backyard. And then you're also taking a commodity that you're trying to globalize in a regenerative way, so that the large multinationals can use it to, have a more regenerative ingredient for things that they already make or things they make in the future. And that's awesome, is that local global balance. And if we can do both, then I think it's definitely audacious that y'all are trying to do both, but clearly you're on the path.
It's a big swing. But I think, we're fortunate to have the resources to try to take the big swing. So I understand that not everyone can raise money on the Australian Stock Exchange and then try to develop a new plant protein. But, and I feel really fortunate to have the opportunity to do that. I just feel like, and I think this is my last sort of, pitch to everyone.
Yeah.
We're in a moment where there's going to be a lot of opportunity to say so and so's greenwashing and so so's not good enough and blah blah blah. I just think that if it's true, fine. But like, I think we should all think about who keep eyes on the prize. What are we actually trying to do? What is the actual, totally dominant food industrial complex? We're trying to change that. And so we need to work together and help each other to, if you think someone's not as good as they say they are, instead of tearing them down, go help them out. And because I have rarely met anyone who is actually just full of shit.
Yeah.
In terms of local people who are trying to do the right thing, I'm sure there's an example, but I haven't met anyone who's not actually trying as hard as they can and could use your help.
Yeah. Love that, man. I think that's the spirit of all the work that we're doing. So couldn't be more aligned there, and appreciate you closing us out with that, because I think it's the right call to action, because no matter what you're doing, you can do that in our space. So just appreciate you being with us, brother. This is awesome. Super informative. We'll share a bunch of links in the show notes for people to learn more. But just thanks for spending some time with us.
Thanks, Anthony. I love what you do, and I really appreciate the opportunity to chat and be on your platform.
Absolutely, brother.
Thanks.
For show notes, episode transcripts, and more information on our guests and what we discuss on the show, check out our website, regen-brands.com. That is regen-brands.com. You can also find our Regen recaps on the website. Regen recaps take less than 5 minutes to read and cover all the key points of the full hour-long conversations. You can check out our YouTube channel, Regen Brands Podcast, for all of our episodes with both video and audio. The best way to support our work is to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform, subscribe to future episodes, and share the show with your friends. Thanks for tuning in to the Regen Brands Podcast, brought to you by the Regen Coalition and Outlaw Ventures. We hope you learned something new in this episode, and it empowers you to use your voice, your time, and your dollars to help us build a better and more regenerative food system. Love you guys.